The pledge to the flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Christiansburg Town Council is now in session. You have copies of the minutes of the last meeting in your packet. If you've had an opportunity to look those over, we'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to accept the minutes as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you. First on our agenda this evening, wait a minute, let's back up. Citizens hearings. Do we have anyone here this evening that would like to address council on any matter? If you stand, please state your name and address your comments to council.
My name is Samuel Bauer. I live on Allegheny Street. May I be the first to wish you a happy vernal equinox, since tonight is Equinox Eve. I come to you to praise you. The Ides of March have passed, and so we can praise you. I am very, very delighted in reading that you have acquired the acreage off of, what is it, Peppers Ferry Road for the park, for a future park. I think that you as council and your staff should be congratulated on looking forward to the needs of the people of the long run. I come to you simply because I have heard negative comments about it. And I want to reinforce that I think, at least in the circles that I travel in, the people are delighted that you have made that decision and spent that money and taken advantage of the availability of that kind of acreage. So I'd like to thank you on behalf of at least my wife and I and several other people that I have been speaking to. The other issue that I would just like to briefly point out, and that is, I understand that there's an item on the agenda of putting together the Cemetery Advisory Committee. Some of you will recall that one of the purposes of the now defunct Christiansburg Civic League, which unfortunately I was involved with and had to see sort of depart, was to do something with Kyle Cemetery. And so we did discover at that time, of course, that both the town of Christiansburg and the county of Montgomery co-own that property. And I believe it is the case that the town has been doing minimal maintenance, like weed control and mowing and so forth. But many of you know that that property, which is just up the hill, is in terrible condition. And it was impossible for us to raise the kinds of funds or even get people interested in doing the first thing that we determined, was fencing, although we did get the property surveyed and those survey markers are still in place. So the property is delineated. I'm just hoping, let me simply say, we didn't come to council for anything regarding that, other than the manager gave us a little bit of help from time to time with cleanup, pickup, and so forth. But at some point, the sad condition of that property, which, by the way, contains graves of some of the original names that you see on the streets of Christiansburg, and graves of slaves and graves of slave owners. It is a very eclectic group of people as far as we know, and there are hundreds of graves that can't be identified. The stones have been completely cleared off. Most of the graves lie in middens, broken, and so forth. If you, at some point in the future, can include that in your maintenance or in some way begin the process of restoration of the dignity, at least, of that cemetery. It would be well timed. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bauer. We appreciate your comments. We've heard both positive and negative with respect to the purchase of the land. We appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else that would like to address council this evening? Mr. Saunders,
Yes, sir. Thank you,
we'll
Mr. Mayor.
recognize you, please, to state your name, where you live.
Patrick Saunders, I live on Majestic Drive, and I would like to thank town council and the town for their efforts in helping with slowing our traffic. It has helped, but in one sense, it has really hurt. And it has helped in the sense that everybody knows there's stop signs there now. The location of the stop signs probably are not in the right location. Now, with traffic coming off of Pepper's Ferry, we do not have a stop sign at Somerset. And everybody knows that it's makeup time. Let's get to the stop sign on top of K's, touch our brakes, shoot through it so we can get through the neighborhood. If you go down Sleepy Hollow, you guys had put stop signs at each and every street. That works. That works. Since the last time I'd spoken to you guys, I had mentioned that we had seen everything come down the street. Y'all had put weight limits on it. We still have concrete trucks, guys. They cut through there all the time. They're not delivering concrete. I came from a service called Fairlawn one morning, followed one all the way from Fairlawn, followed him through the neighborhoods. He was outrunning me. And he cut through Kroger parking lot to get to another call on, somewhere else. So I would just like to ask that you guys go out there and kind of reconsider the placement of these stop signs. You're actually putting the folks in the lower part of that street in harm's way. Since I last talked to you, I had a vehicle total. I've had a mailbox knocked down, and sometimes I park my van out there just to slow traffic. That's why it's there. And I'm afraid I'm gonna step out one day and I'm gonna be the point of attention. And of course, I don't want that to happen. I've got a family that lives across the street. How many children's in that family? Three. And so, like I said, I've seen a lot of things. I do thank you for what you're doing. And I know you've probably gotten complaints. They're just buying stop signs and putting them everywhere. I don't mind if the entire town of Christiansburg comes down Majestic, providing you're doing the speed limit. If people are driving safely, I don't have a problem with it, but that's not the case. It was a couple of Saturdays ago. I had went in to get the wife to get groceries, and there was a police officer sitting next door, and he said, "Man, I've already written 4 tickets, and I haven't been here 20 minutes. And by the time I got here and pulled out, he had done gotten another one." So I know a lot of people do the speed limit, but there are so many that don't. And my dining room table looks directly up at Cage Drive. And I can go, it doesn't matter what time I get home to have a sandwich for lunch, and I can look up there, and if I had a camera on the side of my house and I played it here, you would see so many people just blow right through that stop sign. They don't pay no mind to it. So I think placements, and you guys are in a tough situation, and I do realize that, but I'm just here for safety. That's my primary objective, and I praise you for what you've done, and I thank the town, and I thank you council for that. And that's just ask if you just please reconsider and look at some things. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Saunders. Is there anyone else who would like to address council at this time? Okay, hearing none or seeing none, we'll close the citizens' hearing. And next on the agenda is town council action on the conditional use permit request by Gary Hopper for residential use at 7 and 970 Radford Street, tax parcel 525A-20 in the B3 General District, and a public hearing was held on this on March 5th. and we'll need to take whatever action you desire.
I make a motion to accept the planning commission's recommendation and approve the request.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second to approve the request by the planning commission for the CUP. Discussion? Ms. Clerk, will you poll council on this matter?
Yes, sir. Councilman Barber,
Aye.
Councilman Hall,
Aye.
Councilman Hubbard,
Aye.
Councilman Showalter,
Aye.
Councilman Stipes,
Aye.
Councilman Van Hoosier,
Aye.
It's a 6-0 vote, that motion carries. Conditional use permit will be granted. Second is a proposed revision to Chapter 17, offenses miscellaneous of the Christiansburg Town Code in regards to urban archery. We had this discussion at the last meeting. Is there anything else that we need to?
Only, Mayor, as Mr. Van Hoosier pointed out in the last line on paragraph C, apparently the 8 times I read it didn't pick up that firearm was still in there. But Barry read it 4 times, he said he didn't see it either. Mr. Van Hoosier caught it first time. So we need to change that, use the firearm to the use of the bow.
And under which number is that?
Under paragraph C on the 2nd page, the last line.
I've read through it, and I think it's something that we should proceed with. I concur with the 3 acres minimum, and also I concur with the facts that people less than 18 years of age have to have special requirements for someone with them and so forth. And also, the fact that someone hunting on someone else's property be carrying a written permission, which just goes without saying.
Okay, we'll cross that discharge of a firearm from the ordinance.
Just change firearm to bow.
I think it's already stated, the discharge of a bow, and then later it's the discharge of a firearm, so we'll
Yeah.
cross the discharge of a firearm.
I think you just changed the firearm word to bow.
All right,
I'd like to thank Nicole again for her efforts to do the research to support this, and obviously for Mr. Green. But Nicole did that on her own accord and took it on herself to do that without being asked, at least by me. So I want to thank her for that.
is there any other questions or concerns about the archery in an urban district?
The section B, subsection 6A, where it lists the 3 acres, except for target shooting, discharge of archery equipment is restricted to land consisting of 3 acres or more. Frankly, I appreciate the 3 acres more than the 1 acre. I think the 1 acre was too small last time, so that I would have no issue with. We don't have a minimum size as far as the target shooting, though, correct?
It's never been a restriction.
It's just whatever, and that's,
Yeah.
and of course, it's preceded by the, not through the, towards the road and things like that. So with the 3 acres or more addition in the language, I, at this time, would be more approving of it than I would have last time.
Okay, is it a motion?
I'd make a motion that we accept the section 17-27, archery, urban archery, discharge of bows, exemptions and penalties, that we go forward and accept it as presented, with the modification being that in section C, the language, last sentence, where firearm be stricken to read bow.
Okay, you have a motion,
I'll second it.
motion and a second, discussion? All right, since this is a change in our ordinance, let's have a roll call vote on this one, Ms. Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, before we do the roll call vote, could I ask one more question, sir?
Yes.
Mr. Gwynn, This does bring us into, and I give credit to Mr. Stipes on this is not me. This does bring us into alignment with most of the localities that border us, correct? A lot of them have less than 3 acres. We're actually going
Right,
with 3
right.
acres, but this will bring us in alignment with them.
Yeah, those that have urban archery seasons are very similar.
Okay, but there are a lot of them are not restricted by the 3 acres.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mhm. Okay, Ms. Clerk?
Yes, sir. Councilman Barber.
Aye.
Councilman Hall.
Aye.
Councilman Hubbard.
Aye.
Councilman Showalter.
Aye.
Councilman Stipes.
Aye.
Councilman Van Hoosier.
Aye. That's a 6-0 vote, and that article will be adopted as presented. Next on the agenda is the appointment to the Planning Commission. We interviewed a candidate last time with the understanding that when his background check came back, if it was favorable, we would appoint him. The background check has not come back. So we need to postpone this until another meeting. Next is the discussion regarding estimated cost to remove an existing building and grade at the Christiansburg Industrial Institute. We had that request from a member of their board. This is a safety matter and one that we need to give attention to if we're gonna do it. Discussion?
I'd like to note that Ms. Sokolow and Ms. Schnitzer are here from the CI. They made the effort to be here tonight to answer questions. And I'll go on record to say I completely support the request. I think it's a cost-effective way to help jumpstart their renovation activities and prepare the site itself for more intensive and community uses.
Do we have an estimate, Mr. Helms, of what it would cost to dismantle that building?
To dismantle it and then to grade and topsoil, or grade and seed the area, $7,600.
You know, one of the things,
The tipping fee is.
one of the things that was noted when they were talking about what the use of that property would be, one of them was the possibility of a farmer's market and some stuff like that. That's something they would be willing to sort of condition with this, that we could have, there could be a farmer market located there and operated on a limited basis. Typically, I would think it would probably be a Saturday, maybe Wednesday, or something like that, with restricted hours.
I support us doing this, but I know they are, after speaking with them, considering not only the farmer's market, but also possibly helping us, because the town is limited to our multi-purpose fields and things like that, possibly letting us use those once it's done. So they are considering all their options, and I thank them for that, because that's something they see that a need of the town, and they're considering.
So we have in this year's budget $10,000 appropriated to Christiansburg Institute. And I think the presentation we had last time was for another $10,000 in the next budget year.
Yes, they've requested $10,000 for next year.
All right, the $7,500, would that be deducted from the $10,000 that we have appropriated for them in the next budget cycle?
No.
My understanding was they were asking that in addition to the 10,000.
Since it's spread everywhere, here we just take it out of the rec department budget if we're gonna use it for fields.
I also learned, if there's any consolation, not from the CI folks, but I do understand there's some planning going on between CI and the Montgomery Museum, which I'm very encouraged to hear about. So not only is there some, I don't know, unification might be, there's some very productive efforts going on to to, regarding the Ed Gray Long Building in particular, but also to tie it also with the Montgomery Museum for events and meaningful collaboration on some community activities. In fact, even in the Montgomery Chamber annual report that I saw this year, the CI is in that this year as a historical site. But anyway, I bring to note that there's also some collaboration with Montgomery Museum going on, which could only lead to good things in my opinion.
If we did do this, could we get something, and you said that you would be interested in putting a farmer's market there, could we have something in writing from you saying that you would do this upon the completion of us doing our work, and saying how you would do it, and something like that? Some people think that a farmer's market is just a piece of change, but it takes a considerable amount of work and liaison work, and I would think before that we would do this, I would like to see something in concrete from you, if it'd be all right, okay?
Well, I'll take it and bring it back.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to see us, and, you know, I want to support the community and this organization, like everyone else and so forth. We're right now in the thrust of wanting to have a working session on the budget and so forth. I'd like to see us go ahead and consider your other requests you have in and this request together at the same time that we're working the budget without making a commitment at the moment.
And I guess the question that I have is, if it's 7,600, we'll round up. If it's that estimate for the removal, disposal, and then we've also got the $10,000 request from the Christopher Institute, which we've honored before in the past, is that, and perhaps I should know the answer to this question, but I don't. If it's a one-time thing, would we just include that as an item in our budget, as far as instead of having the gift being at 10, and we're going to do in kind for the 7,500 anyway, but we're going to actually provide the labor and do the work. If we just increase it, and that way it still shows up as it is, we're just increasing the gift for this year, one time, for the purposes of being able to clear the property, dispose of the property. Would that be cleaner in the budget, or, again, we're getting close to the budget session anyway, I just wonder if that might be.
It should be something you should be able to put in the budget and put a footnote what the $7,600 was allocated for.
Right.
And that's a one-time request.
That's right.
It's not year after year after year.
So I just don't know what, and I guess it's to kind of take off of what Mr. Van Hoosier said, it might be cleaner if we do it that direction, that way. But I would certainly defer to council.
One other comment along those regards. Part of the thinking, if town council is inclined to do that, then if the work was done soon, then the site could be used this year.
That's right.
With, stabilized with grass and so forth. But the more, if you get into midsummer and try to plant grass, good luck.
Well, you
I know
run into
that's-
a lot of the reunion, it's a festival of sorts. It's like
Yes.
cooking around the world. I think that's what it was at one time. I mean, I agree with Brad. When we get done with the budget, that's well into, hopefully not to the end of June, but.
Well, it's just something to consider, and if I might put somebody on the spot, you do have some activities planned for this year.
Yes, we
You
do
would-
a reunion.
You would like,
Yeah, over the July weekend.
yeah, that's what I understood is this summer you'd like to, but that's another consideration, but I'll certainly,
All right, let's hear from Mr. Helms with respect to a timeline.
Well, Public Works could do it fairly quickly if you want to do it now. If don't do it later, they can do it, they can schedule it without an issue, without a major problem. I see basically four options. One, not do it. One, do it now. One, do it as part of the budget in addition to the 10,000, and one, do it as part of the 10,000.
Well, basically, we
Four
decided to do it.
basic ones I see. I'm sure there's other options.
But if we decide to go ahead and do it now, we could determine that later on, at least that way we kill two birds with one stone. Not that's just the phrase I use, but meaning that we can go ahead and get the work done and be working on that, and then we can deliberate later on about how we're going to allocate or how we're gonna word it in our budget, and that way we're not holding them up. That's what I hear from Mr. Stipes and Mr. Showalter, what it sounds like.
That's true, but that would be tying the CI's hands if we
That's
were
fine.
to approve
That's
the
right.
work and then subsequently decide that that's gonna come off of the other request, which I know is needed for operations to keep the staff and the initiative continued, because there are costs that you're incurring. But I would say that instead, if we were to say go ahead with the work and then subtract it from their 10,000, they may not want that. They may rather have the 10,000.
I kind of like the idea of let's go ahead and do it, because, one, this is in kind. I mean, it is not a
Right.
monetary, we're gonna write you a check for $7,600. I assume that we have scheduled or think we can do this without incurring any overtime, and some downtimes for our department, or if they've got some
I
time to
wouldn't
put
say
on.
downtime, but it wouldn't be overtime.
Okay, well, I mean, and that's the whole thing, there's nothing monetary, I mean, it's not shelling out anything monetary, it's all labor. And that's, we're gonna pay the guys
Are these,
one way or another.
are these loaded labor numbers? Are these straight salary numbers? Does it take into account the other expenses that we incur with an employee?
That looks like, it's more than their straight salary, so.
It's probably loaded in, okay. That was my question,
if we
because then you
put
get a
this-
real feel for what it's costing.
If we put this together, is parking gonna be a problem? Or is parking part of this?
But I think it's long frontage, they have a lot of room just pulling off the road for parking for one-time events. And it'll be level enough, they could pull, have 2 or 3 rows of parking if they want to.
I mean, I was thinking about the multi-purpose field, that we might start playing soccer there or something of that nature, our kids.
There's room for parking.
There is, okay.
From a standpoint of safety, I'd say let's go ahead and get this done immediately. Is there anything salvageable in that property? Everything's gonna have to be hauled off?
If we go to trying to salvage the wood out of it, we'll increase the labor
Cost.
cost a whole
Yeah.
lot.
All right, haul it off.
There's not any major timbers. Blue Ridge Timberlake has been, I think, looked at it, and there wasn't anything in there that they could use. So.
All right, I'm in favor of going ahead and tearing the facility down with the understanding that if it works out that we can use that for farmer's market, it would be kind of a trade-off. We have a motion,
So moved.
Second.
motion and a second to do this demolition work as soon as possible.
And for clarification, any in-kind, by this motion going forward, my understanding is that any in-kind work that the town of Christiansburg is involved in with the property will not be the subject, therefore, for deduction from the amount of money we would normally allocate. Yeah.
That's understood.
Okay.
They
That's
still
what-
get
that's
the
what makes
10,000.
sense, correct.
The budget ever
So this would not be factored in.
If the budget passes, I remind you. Okay, any further discussion? Not all in favor of removing that existing building at Christiansburg Institute, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Sir, one thing on that, the farmer's market will require a conditional use permit. If y'all would like
Vote on
to
that
approve
tonight.
that when we get around to it.
Yeah.
And if you could start working on the paperwork on that too, that would be good.
I'll tell you the story after this.
I think the staff there has to identify an area that they would recommend that we use for a farmer's market if we're gonna do
I
that.
don't believe I understood that the CI people were gonna run the farmer's market, they're just
No.
gonna provide the space for us, is that correct? Don't understand.
Yes, that is correct.
That brought them out of the woodwork.
Well, I would believe there'll be a lot of discussion, and definitely, I know, Ms. Sokolow, I mean, she, whenever she passes along information, I'm sure she'll work with town staff, and Steve will get something that'll make us all happy, I'm sure, but, I'm excited about it.
Okay, thank you. Let's move along. Taxi cab license renewal applications.
Yes, sir, I have 5 taxi cab operators. Robert J. Vaughn, Irene T. Vaughn, Dan Truman East, Rita Dennis Bradbury, and Crystal Slusher Davidson. Requested to be taxi cab operators. They have been in the past. The police have done their background check and on them, and they recommend approval, and I recommend approval.
Is this approval for 1 more year?
1 more year, yes.
Move to
Also
approve.
move.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the taxi cab license renewal. Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you. Motion carries. Mr. Hall, Mr. Hubbard, cemetery recommendation.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Hubbard and I met with Mr. Carpenetti, who has been fantastic to work with in this project. And what you should have in your packet is the breakdown of the parameters of establishing the cemetery committee, the advisory committee. Specific points are that we're looking at no more than, and I emphasize no more than, 6 voting at-large members of the town. And one thing we did to modify the prior requirements, it used to be that you would have own a plot in Sunset or have a family member buried there. Now we've also increased it to mean that if, as long as you are just a town resident, that is enough. So it's one, that, or that, or that. So it's much easier for us to get numbers. The 2 non-voting members would be the acting cemetery manager, who will also keep minutes. And then 1 spot is reserved for a member of the death care industry, which we've set aside for the in-home funeral home here in town, Richardson Horn. We've spoken to them. My understanding is they'll have someone on the panel, kind of at large. And that either myself or Mr. Hubbard will probably on a rotational will attend the meetings and then be the liaisons to report back. I think the anticipation, at least from the outset, is it would be a quarterly meeting, although if the advisory council determines they need to meet more frequently, they can do that at their discretion. Or if there's a particular question that comes up, we can request for them to meet earlier. The appointees would be for staggered terms, so it'd have 2 3 years, 2 2 years, and 2 1 years. As of this moment, we have, I think, approximately 5 members that we've already been looking at the resumes for those particular appointments. If the council decides to let us go forward and create the cemetery advisory committee, we look forward to the next meeting in April, letting you know who those individual members would be and what their term would be. And I would also emphasize that it would be advisory only, and that that's pretty much lays out what we've looked at and what we've kind of fine-tuned to be what we think we can work with as the advisory committee. I think we're simply looking for the blessing of the council at this point to move forward.
And if we do have the blessing, we plan eventually to bring out the people who have been selected for the cemetery committee and to introduce them to you, and if there's any questions you might have of them, that'd be fine. So we plan to do that in the future too.
Application process, was it public application notice?
Actually, we did it twice. We did it the first time, and I believe that we got a certain number of names, and then we did it again just to see if there was anyone else out there with the, I think what we did the second time was to update the requirements as to mean not only this or this, but now if you're just a town resident, although I think the way we worded it the first time, it kind of included that anyway. So we've done it twice.
And we had some very good responses too. Some people who are interested in Christiansburg and have a background. Ms. Carter is one of those.
I got a quick question. Is this just for Sunset, or, I mean, reflecting back on what Mr. Bowers mentioned about the cemetery right behind us, which is always stayed in limbo, would this be something that the request that he mentioned that your committee, it would fall under your umbrella?
My understanding would be that any cemetery in the town of Christiansburg that we have an ownership interest in, that this advisory committee would work in conjunction. That would be my anticipation. Although I'd be lying if I said that I had considered the other cemetery before Mr. Bauer spoke about it this evening. I had not considered that. But I certainly see no reason why our advisory committee or council or committee would not be dealing with all cemeteries that would be owned or interested in would be through Christiansburg.
Whether we have ownership or not.
I'm not very familiar with the specifics of this one. I don't know if it's jointly owned or
I don't
not.
think there's any.
There's been some previous discussion about that because there are probably more cemeteries than anyone at this table realizes
Yeah.
that's around, and that's when you delve into it. But Mr. Helms, what is, to speak to his statements there, what is the town's ownership interest in other cemeteries? What purview do we have in other cemeteries other than, non-town property, or is it town property? I don't know.
Other than Sunset, this one up on the hill, according to the surveyor, like Mr. Bauer said, we jointly own
Okay.
a part.
Okay.
I don't know
That's good.
if it's
Okay.
the whole thing is owned
Okay.
jointly with us, or is there still some other ownerships in there? I have to go back and look at what the surveyor said, but.
Okay.
What about the one
and
over there by the trailer park that we talked about?
We don't
We
have
don't
any
own
interest
that
in
one?
that at all that
Okay.
I'm aware of. We,
Alright.
and the only other one I have in question is down at Station B, or Public Works Department. There's a cemetery in the middle of that. And I don't know if we just own the land around it, or if we actually own the cemetery too. It shows up as a separate tax parcel. Do you know if we own it, or? Yeah, I don't.
I would
But
almost.
that'd be the only one in question I know of, other than Pepper Street.
Well, to adequately apprise our advisory council as to the purview of their advisement, I guess I would make a formal request, then maybe by next council meeting, we could be provided with the different pamphlet. If you could just probably list the cemeteries listed in town, because I might be surprised as well
Yeah.
to learn how many, but then most importantly, our ownership interest that we would have in those, which I equate with our interest or our responsibility in upkeep.
Right.
And that way it would certainly fall within the purview of the committee. Because again, I obviously from outset, we looked at and thought about Sunset, but there might be quite a few others we have an interest in that needs to be on the table.
I agree with that. I support the formation of the committee.
And there's a rather large cemetery on Radford Road, and I'm not sure if it's the Schaefer Memorial Cemetery. And, that's one we probably need to take a look at. I don't know,
We don't have any interest
really
in that
don't know
one.
who's taking care of it now, but,
We don't have that.
okay.
They have a
And then
board of
there's a
trustees and all.
cemetery down at the end of Park Street behind what used to be Forest.
Yeah, that's the one you
That's the
mentioned a
one
moment
It's
ago.
the Craig Cemetery, right? I know we've done some cleanup down there.
We hauled some stuff off for them, they
Right.
cleaned up. So,
Okay, you heard the recommendation of the cemetery committee. They'll be coming back with names next week.
And I guess I would need to make that in the form of a motion, Mr. Mayor, is that as we put forth, we'd ask for the blessing of town council to formally go ahead and form this advisory committee.
Yeah, I second it.
And I think the role of the advisory committee will have to be defined probably
Absolutely.
as you go.
Yes, sir.
All right, you have a motion
And a second.
and a second to accept the recommendation of the cemetery committee to proceed with an advisory committee to the cemetery. Anything else you want in that motion? Discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, cemetery committee, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Town manager?
You'd like to set a public hearing for the 16th of April on council's intention to adopt an ordinance in regards to rezoning request by Loyal Order of the Moose Incorporated for property at 115 Farmview Road from I-2 to B3 General Business, and it's scheduled as commercial and future land use map of the comprehensive plan. So I'd like to set that for 16th of April.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to set that for April 16th. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
There's, provided you with a copy of the Huckleberry Trail progress update. There's one change on Phase 2E. The Kenson easement has been agreed to. He hasn't been to town yet to sign it, but he's willing to sign it, and we're just waiting for it. The deed's ready. As soon as he comes to town, we'll get him signed, and that'll be completed.
thank you for providing this.
You don't realize the work that goes into this, really.
So the environmental clearance has been received from VDOT?
Yes, last week.
That's fantastic. So when's the advertisement date?
Soon, we hope. I think within the next 2 weeks, we're waiting on right-of-way certification, which Wayne either you finished it today?
Yes, and there's 3DE allocation, VDOT's working on that, that's gonna take 2-3 weeks.
Oh,
Michelle said. We'll be ready as soon as they're ready.
Yeah, as soon as we get the DB allocation, and
And you're gonna advertise 3 projects together, right? Minimum
Two.
of 3. 2?
Two. Phase.
Okay. 2B,
2A and 2B.
2A and 2B, and that'll bring us up to Cambria?
connect into the one goes to rec center. So it'll be all the way to the rec center.
And the big question, anticipated completion. Any idea?
Well, when we get the bids back, they'll give us an estimated time of construction. I would think by the end of the summer.
The main
You'll be through
thing.
before the bridge is.
Yeah, that's the other thing, the bridge is still, as long as this, I told you, or as long as there's yellow iron out there this year, making that progress, and it's ready when the bridge is online, which will probably be about, summer next year, that bridge will be up. So, as long as it's done before summer, then I think we'll be good. And I want to, thank you for that.
Worked through a couple easement issues on 2E, and that design is being finalized. VDOT's already given their blessing.
Okay.
When we started that program, that's 7 years ago, I believe, wasn't it, Mr. Stipes? And,
20.
we had hoped, well, I mean, actively pursuing. The trail was there a long time before that. But we anticipate seeing that brought to a conclusion within our lifetime.
Very soon, very soon.
And if do we have a, I know they've modified the architectural drawings, but the bridge itself, do we have a?
That was the next thing. There's, at each of these places, there's a couple of thing up here, if anybody wants to look at it, is, the yellow one is sort of a rendering of what the 114 project, how much right of way and all they'll be taking. And then the second part is the bridge design plans. You can see the view.
It's pretty huge, isn't it? It's not small.
Well, just the ramp leading up to it.
Yeah.
Yes, the S shape.
Well, the other end too.
Sheet two of the plan by Dan Neal shows what we call the facade view, or what it's gonna look like from the street.
And this is all made, the drawings are made available to members of the public as well?
There's somewhere right here.
Correct.
Yeah, I noticed that in Sunday's paper, it said that they had one-lane traffic out there yesterday, so they could start working at the ends for the bridge, but the weather prevented that.
Several utilities have to be moved for the bridge abutments, and there's a lot of stuff in the ground out there.
While you're talking about that, Mr. Helms, can you give us any kind of update on the 114 project? I know traffic is beginning to back up out there at times.
They're on schedule and they're working. We've finished most of the utility work on the other side of the railroad tracks, the water lines and stuff. And they're working towards, from the railroad to North Franklin Street, and they're on schedule, but, that's about all I can tell you.
Okay.
I travel that road most days more than once, and I've been real pleased with how we kept the traffic moving. It's been great.
Aside from when church lets out on Sunday afternoon.
Hey, yeah, and they're not working then.
Right.
Hey, Mr. Hall, the last sheet is.
I saw that. That's really
That's
impressive.
the last sheet is, sorry to do that.
Oh, no, thank you.
The engineering department is working with the MPO to assist in the traffic study on North Franklin from Cambria to Independence. I think we can get that part done through the MPO instead of putting it as part of the 6-year plan. Or in VDOT's 6-year plan, we'll get it done quicker that way. And that can feed into the Cambria Street road improvement when that happens, if we don't get it accomplished before the intersection improvements.
Will that be an agenda item at the next MPO meeting, do you know?
I think so. I know the TAC's gonna talk about it at the next TAC meeting, so it'll probably come to the MPO board, or MPO at large. 2 engineering partners also working on 2 speed studies that requested last meeting. It'll take a few more weeks to complete that. The reminder of the meeting next Tuesday, 26th of March, 6, I believe, is what?
6:30.
6:30 for the, talk about the Joinder study.
Yes, and Mr. Higgins will be here.
And that's all I have, sir.
Ms. Tweedy and Mr. Helms have been actively working on the budget this week along with the Finance Committee, and I think we're about ready to have a work session on the budget. I have put on my agenda a tentative date of April 9th, which is a non-Tuesday council meeting night. Does that suit everybody?
Is there any way we could combine it and do, or, I don't wanna throw a fly in the ointment, I'll support that, but could we have some dialogue start next week, since we're all gonna be,
I'd really rather see them separate because
Okay,
they could be,
that's fine, okay, I retract my comment.
and April 9th works for me.
April 9th is fine with me.
Is that okay? All right, we'll set April the 9th. You wanna go at 6:30? It suit everybody?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It suits me just fine.
Does the Finance Committee want to have another meeting before then?
Okay, that'll be up to the Finance Committee if you wanna meet.
I'm not sure what, well, I'll let Councilman Garner speak to that.
No, I've reviewed the document today, and obviously there's some items that we will all need to discuss as a group. I think we're fine to wait until the 9th.
I agree with you.
Okay, will council have copies of the budget by then?
We have.
We have it.
You have them now in your possession?
Mhm.
Good.
It was emailed by Val.
It's on the webpage too. Okay. It'll be on the webpage by the end of tomorrow, so I think
Okay.
it might be up there now.
All right. We still need a volunteer or someone from council to serve on the New River Valley Planning District Commission. And so far, I haven't had anyone step forward.
I would nominate Mr. Van Hoosier.
I appreciate that.
I'll second that.
The mayor and I have talked about
I'll second that.
sharing that and maybe alternating because they meet on a Thursday night.
The 3rd Thursday of each month.
Yeah.
All right, is it okay with you if Mr. Van Hoosier becomes our representative? And if he can't make it, I'll be his alternate.
Expect calls.
All right, we won't take any action on that, we'll just do it. What else, Mr. Helms?
That's all I have, sir.
Anything else to come before council? Mr. Hubbard?
I see that Terry Caldwell is here tonight, and I think everybody saw on the emails, I think it was yesterday or today, concerning the diving championship that was held last week. And the diving coach from Virginia Tech was highly supportive and just had lots of good things to say about what the Aquatic Center did and how they handled the meet and how professionally it was done. And on top of that too, there's 3 men divers from Tech and 3 women divers who are going to advance on to the regions, I guess. And then, did I cover that pretty well? You got anything to add?
Did an excellent job.
What's the next big event coming up, Terry? The next big event at the Aquatic Center is what?
Thursday.
This coming Thursday,
They'll be coming from Maryland down,
1,300 of them.
swimmers. So it'll be interesting.
The
They'll
thing
be-
there is, don't go out to eat in Christiansburg this coming
A few of them, I
weekend.
think, will,
Grill your
yeah.
own steaks.
Yeah. They'll be here through Sunday night.
And I believe this is the largest meet that we've ever had, is that
It is
correct? Never been more than 1,000, or was it 900?
I think low 900.
So we're going about 250 over from what we did before.
All right, let us extend an invitation for anyone in the audience. If you've never seen a swim meet, try to get by there and spend about an hour watching. It's remarkable to see. Mr. Showalter.
I just wanted to piggyback on what, sort of what Steve's talking about, the Aquatic Center. We had our tourism strategic plan today. It's a huge group. I mean, in the town, I will say our membership or our attendance to that outweighs any other locality. With town staff, I missed one out of the three, but I made today's, and Mr. Hubbard made the previous one, but there is a lot of progress going on, and if you ever want to see this document, it's huge, and it was very comprehensive on what we're looking at, but I wanted to get back to what Terry, we already have footings down for the Virginians for Lovers tourism. I want to say it's not a display. What is it?
Sculpture.
It's a sculpture.
It's a love sculpture.
So the footer's already down for that, or for the placement, but I guess I'm gonna ask Barry where, because I think our public works are doing.
Yes,
doing
and
that.
the letters are at Public Works as soon as the footers are ready. It has to be up by the end of March, so.
And I have an update on that from today, actually,
Okay.
speaking with Mr. Bourne. They will discontinue the work on the project tomorrow due to the swim meet, and then hope to take it up again Monday morning and possibly get the letters in the next week is what they're hoping, so.
So it's gonna be interesting to see that up.
And to piggyback on what Henry just said too, I talked to Barry, and I think Miss Lisa is gonna be coming, a speaker over here in the next couple months and tell council what's going on in tourism, just to give us a little update.
April 16th.
We'll look forward to her presentation. And Mr. Showalter, I don't know whether we expressed our appreciation to you and Paige for updating the Christiansburg map with all of the eating places and motels located, but we really appreciate that. And those things are being used throughout the community.
Well, I'll definitely pass that along to my daughter Paige. She uses a computer a lot, but it's
It's not-
Kelly.
is it Paige or Kelly?
Right.
Kelly.
And it's appreciated. It's a lot of hard work that she goes through, especially dealing with me, taskmaster of sorts. And, but we appreciate council, their thoughts and supporting it. I mean, I think our merchants and our restaurants, they do get a lot of business out of those. Those are a proven commodity for us.
And we have those in place for the big baseball tournament that's going to be taking place this summer, another World Series. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Anything else come
Yes,
before
sir.
council?
Yes, sir, if you don't mind. A couple of months ago, we had Josh Smith from Ignite came to us and was talking about one of the projects that they were gonna have. That was 2 weekends ago. They had, I don't know how many kids they had come in from other colleges and programs. They had a community service day. And on Monday morning, I got a call from Brad Epperly, who was just ecstatic. They apparently, just to work on the two fields down behind the old Southern Dairies known as Kiwanis Park, they had 56 kids down there working on that thing. And if you haven't been by there lately, I mean, they've painted backstops. They did a remarkable job in about 4 hours' time, and it looks almost like a new park. And I think I was in the back of my mind, and I have a meeting, or we have Zach coming to, Josh coming to another meeting that I'm going to attend this week. And if it's all right, without stepping on the cemetery's committee's toes, I might ask him if his group might have an interest in doing some work on particularly this cemetery, with guidance from the town, obviously, but they're hustlers, they're go-getters. And the second thing that I have is, and I was handed one of those little computer things on a stick that you, on a lanyard, I don't know what the hell they're called, I can't use them anyway. But a sign maker, customer of mine brought me something that to review, and obviously I don't know how to do it, but I'd like to pass it on to Terry. It's a proposal for a digital sign at the Aquatic Center that he says you can pay for itself within 18 months with advertising. And it's Mark, the guy that did your other stuff. If it's all right, I want to just pass that on to her to look at it. Maybe she can tell me if it's interesting or not, I don't know. But first when I thought about a sign, I said, well, we got a good sign. You got a digital sign, and I'm thinking, that's a lot of publicity for events right there. So anyway, if it's all right with council, I'm gonna pass it on to Terry to look at and get feedback on.